There were many moments that led to the formation of a distinct Western culture. Some of them we talked about in previous videos. But it all had to start somewhere. Today, we're diving into ancient history to explore the moment that started it all, the Ionian Revolt. Buckle up, because this wasn't just some local squabble. This conflict, sparked by a dude named Aristagoras way back in 499 BC, backfired in a big way. We're talking about a chain reaction of events that's still analyzed by historians today. Let's jump in and see how this one leader's choice sends shockwaves through the ancient world. Hi, my name is Sebastian, you're watching Mistakes That Changed the World. "2,500 years ago, on the Aegean coast of today's Turkey, there was a city called Miletus. Back then, it was kind of like a small cog in the giant Persian Empire. The whole coast, known as Ionia, belonged to the Persians, and Miletus's ruler, Aristagoras, answered directly to the powerful king of kings, Darius I. But unlike today, communication back then was slow, really slow. Think messages carried by horseback. It took Darius weeks just to get a message to Miletus and months to gather an army and march it all the way out there. Basically, Miletus was on the edge of the empire, far from the king's watchful eye. This meant the rulers, called satraps, had a bit of freedom. Well, a lot of freedom actually. And Aristagoras, well, he was about to test those limits in a big way. So, what happened? Well, you see, back then, the satraps were basically in a competition. They all wanted to impress their boss, King Darius, to basically score a sweet promotion, which of course would have meant fancy palaces and a comfortable life in the capital, Babylon. But there was a problem for Aristagoras. Miletus wasn't exactly a prized possession. Being a good ruler wasn't enough to get noticed. He needed something big, something that would grab Darius' attention and make him say, "Wow, this guy is really good." Only then could he snag a more prestigious and rich satrapy or a cushy job right next to the king. And lo and behold, an opportunity would soon arise for Aristagoras. Just off the coast of Miletus there was an island called Naxos. Naxos was kind of like a sub-colony within the Persian Empire, with its own Persian-backed ruler who collected taxes for Darius. Today we'd say that it's in Persia's sphere of influence. Now, Naxos was even further away from the Persian capital than Miletus, so the islanders figured, hey, we're practically out of sight, out of mind. So they decided to overthrow their Persian ruler, declare independence, and bam, no more taxes. They also saw this as a way to boost their trade by not having to follow Persian restrictions. As you can see, the revolt wasn't exactly about fancy ideas like democracy. Back then it was more like, hey, we want to keep our money and trade freely. Yes, self-interest was a powerful motivator even thousands of years ago. But this bold move by Naxos definitely got Aristagoras thinking. He figured that if he could swoop in and reclaim the island for Persia, he'd be a hero in Darius' eyes. Surely he'd be scoring a promotion, right? Worst case, Naxos would become part of his own satrapy, boosting his tax revenue. But here's the snag. Miletus was a landlocked city, Naxos was an island, so there were no ships to get an army to the rebels. Aristagoras came up with a plan. He cut a deal with the satrap of neighboring Lydia, a way richer and more powerful region. In addition, the Lydian satrap, Artaphernes, just happened to be Darius' brother. Having him involved guaranteed that news of Aristagoras' victory would reach the king fast. He also hired Megabates, a top-notch superstar admiral of the time, to lead the attack. Everything seemed perfect until, well, in a major goof-up, Aristagoras ended up insulting Megabates. He interfered in the admiral's role in disciplining the ship captains, only to save a friend from harsh punishment for an infraction. Bad move. Megabates expected to have full control, and such interferences were a no-no. So to get his revenge, Megabates spilled the beans and warned Naxos about the invasion. The islanders immediately beefed up their defenses, hid their valuables, and were basically ready to fight. And fight they did. After 4 long months of getting pummeled, Aristagoras and his crew were forced to sling back to Miletus with their tails behind their legs. But this isn't the end of our story. This failed mission was about to have huge consequences. Aristagoras now had a very, very serious problem. Remember how he borrowed his fleet from the king's brother? Yeah, he didn't get his ships for free. He promised Artaphernes a big chunk of the Naxos loot in return. Not only that, he also promised to use the same army to conquer another region, Euboea, for Lydia. But, with Naxos turning into a total flop and his army in shambles, Miletus had nothing to offer and nowhere near enough soldiers for another fight. Basically, Aristagoras was stuck between a rock and a very hard place. He'd made these promises not to some random dude, but to the king's brother. This mess-up could mean exile at best, or more likely, a very unpleasant demise. So things were about to get real interesting for our main character, but this was one despot that wasn't about to give easily. Faced with punishment by the Persian Empire, he did something unbelievable. He must have been an incredibly persuasive guy, because he convinced the people of Miletus to straight up rebel against Persia. This was a huge, huge gamble, but there were a few things going for him though. First, Miletus was a Greek city-state, way more connected to other Greek cities than to faraway Babylon. Culturally, they were on the same page. Second, Aristagoras was indeed a smooth talker. He managed to convince other Greek colonies along the Aegean coast to join his rebellion. This is even more impressive considering the whole mess started because Aristagoras couldn't put down a similar revolt on Naxos. So now, a rebel leader, Aristagoras went into full-on salesman mode. He offered gold and sweet trade deals to mainland Greece in exchange for their help. Sparta wasn't buying it, but Athens and Ephesus, well, they were down to join the rebels. Let's be honest, there was a mix of motives here. Pride definitely played a part, plus, who wouldn't want some extra cash? But remember, Persia was a giant empire, way stronger than any Greek city-state. It was like a tiny town in Vermont rebelling against the entire US. The odds were seriously stacked against them. And yet, Athens and Ephesus, two of Greece's biggest hitters, sent ships and soldiers to help the Ionian Revolt. Meanwhile, back in Persia, King Darius was fuming. He wanted to crush this rebellion and help his brother, but as I said earlier, the Persian Empire was huge. It took ages to gather an army and even longer to march them all the way to Ionia. In the meantime, the rebels made a bold move. The combined forces of Athens, Ionia, and Ephesus launched a surprise attack on Sardis, the capital of Lydia, ruled by Artaphernes, the guy who Aristagoras messed over. The city was caught off guard, and the Greek rebels stormed right in. Artaphernes and his men scurried to the citadel, a super-fortified part of the city, while the rebels, they went a little wild. The Greeks plundered everything they could get their hands on, and then they set the whole city on fire because, of course they did. And all Artaphernes could do was watch from the citadel as his city burned. Needless to say, this whole mess wasn't looking good for the Persians. But just as the flames started to die down, Darius's army finally showed up, ready to smash the rebellion. They caught the Greeks off guard and dealt them a crushing defeat. Most of the rebels, including Aristagoras, were either killed or captured. Only the Athenians managed to escape. They hightailed it back to Athens on their ships, leaving everyone else holding the bag. But the damage was done. The burning of Sardis seriously ticked off Darius and his family. These little Greek city-states, once considered too unimportant to bother with, had just burned down the capital of a whole Persian province. This was a huge insult and a dangerous precedent, and Darius wasn't the forgiving type. He saw Greece as a threat now, a threat he wouldn't tolerate. This was the beginning of the Greco-Persian Wars. Now imagine for a moment a world where Greece and Persia never clashed. It almost happened. If Aristagoras hadn't gotten cocky and insulted his admiral, maybe he wouldn't have needed a crazy rebellion to save his own skin. And if Athens had just minded its own business, the Persian Empire might have ignored those tiny Greek city-states altogether. But that's not how things went down. Aristagoras' mistake sparked a chain reaction, and the conflict that ensued led to epic battles like Marathon or the legendary stand of the 300 Spartans. It even paved the way for Alexander the Great's conquest of Persia centuries later. Here's the crazy part. If Greece hadn't been threatened by Persia, maybe Philip of Macedon wouldn't have needed to unite Greece, and then Western culture wouldn't have developed the way it did. The mighty Persian Empire might have dominated the West for much longer, shaping a world with very different values. We could be living in a world that prioritizes obedience to a strong ruler over individual rights and achievements. So, yeah, the world we live in today is kind of thanks to a messed up situation involving a single ambitious politician on the edge of a giant empire. Pretty wild, huh? So, do you agree? Is Western civilization a product of these events? Or maybe we're giving too much attention to this ancient conflict? Leave your thoughts in a comment downstairs. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of pivotal moments and domino effects in history. Do remember that there's a Patreon page if you feel like helping this channel out. I'd like to thank my long-standing patrons Dan and Lawrence Neal for their continued support. In the meantime, as always, I do hope to see you next time. Bye.